are getting more reaction. One former federal prosecutor from Houston calls the Mueller report chilling and a poor reflection on our political process.
He also says the report raises a lot of extra questions. Adam Bennett sat down with the now defense attorney. Adam.
Well, Jason and Grace, Philip Hilder has met Robert Mueller. He describes him as fair, thorough, and a straight shooter, qualities that he says are reflected in this report. Now, Hilder's biggest takeaway, he says this report shows that President Trump still has serious issues, even though he was not criminally charged. The former prosecutor told me that he was most surprised by the apparently great scope of the president's efforts to interfere with the investigation. He says that includes ordering a White House lawyer to fire Mueller. Now, Hilder also says that Mueller conducted his investigation at lightning speed, with the fear of being fired always there. Hilder thinks that President Trump answering investigators' written questions instead of doing an in-person interview might have also helped keep him out of trouble.
Quite frankly, when you read the report, if it were applying to anybody other than the president, they would be indicted for obstruction of justice. I think what saves the president in this case is that he is the president, and Justice Department policy does not allow the prosecution of a sitting president.
Now, the Houston attorney also believes that the report would be more complete if Mueller had more time and more support from the administration. Now, he also thinks that the redacted portion suggests that there could be investigations or even charges yet to come. Where he sees those findings heading next and why he says neither of the major political parties or really anybody should be celebrating, that's coming up at 5. Jason?
Thank you, Adam. This may be a never-ending story, and to read the redacted version of the Mueller report, just head to khou.com. Also, their analysis from experts and more reaction from members of Congress.